Celine had always believed in fairy tales. She believed in true love, destined mates, and happily ever after. Standing in front of the mirror in her small cottage, adjusting the silver pendant Marcus had given her on their mating ceremony, she smiled. The pendant caught the morning light, throwing tiny rainbows across the wooden walls. Today marked their 1-year anniversary as mates, and she had prepared everything perfectly. The Crimson Moon Pack had accepted her despite being an Omega. It wasn't easy being the weakest rank in a pack of warriors, but Marcus, the strong and handsome Beta, had chosen her. He had looked past her lack of strength, her inability to shift into a powerful wolf, and her quiet nature. He had seen something in her that no one else had, or so she thought. Celine moved through her cottage, checking the dinner she had spent all day preparing. Marcus's favorite roasted venison with wild herbs, fresh bread from the pack bakery, and a berry pie that had taken her 3 attempts to get right. The table was set with wildflowers she had picked from the meadow that morning. Everything had to be perfect. She was an Omega, yes, but she had found her place in the pack. She worked in the pack hospital, helping the healer, caring for pups, and doing the gentle work that suited her nature. The other wolves sometimes looked down on her, whispered about how the Beta could have done better, but Marcus always defended her. He always told her she was enough. The front door opened, and Celine's heart jumped with excitement. But it wasn't Marcus. It was Lydia, her only real friend in the pack, and the look on Lydia's face made Celine's smile fade. "Celine," Lydia said, her voice trembling, "we need to talk. Right now. What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" Celine moved toward her friend, medical instincts kicking in. Lydia closed the door behind her and grabbed Celine's hands. Her eyes were filled with tears. "I don't know how to tell you this. I've been trying to find the right moment for weeks, but there is no right moment for something like this." Cold dread settled in Celine's stomach. "Lydia, you're scaring me." "It's Marcus," Lydia blurted out. "He's been seeing someone else. Isabella, the Alpha's daughter. I've seen them together, Celine, multiple times. In the forest, in the pack house when they think no one is watching. They're planning something. I heard them talking about you, about getting rid of you." The world tilted. Celine pulled her hands away, shaking her head. "No. No, that's not possible. Marcus loves me. We're mates. The bond is weak because you're an Omega," Lydia said gently, painfully. "I'm so sorry, Celine, but you need to know. Isabella wants to be Beta female. She's ambitious, and Marcus is ambitious too. You were never part of his long-term plans. You were just convenient." Celine stumbled backward, her legs hitting the chair. She sat down hard, the air knocked from her lungs. "You're wrong. You have to be wrong." "I wish I was," Lydia whispered. "But Celine, it's worse than that. I heard them talking about framing you for something big. They want you exiled from the pack. You need to leave. Tonight, before whatever they're planning happens." The night everything shattered. Celine spent the afternoon in a daze. She wanted to believe Lydia was mistaken, that there was some explanation. But deep in her heart, in that place where the mate bond should have been strong and certain, she felt the truth. The bond had always been weak, a thin thread instead of an unbreakable rope. She had blamed herself, thought it was because she was an Omega, because she wasn't strong enough to maintain it properly. Now she understood. Marcus had never truly accepted the bond. He had been blocking it, keeping her at a distance. When Marcus finally came home that evening, Celine was sitting at the dinner table, the food cold and untouched. He walked in with his usual confident stride, his handsome face breaking into a smile when he saw her. "Sorry I'm late, little Omega," he said, using the pet name that had once made her feel cherished but now felt like an insult. "Beta duties ran long. Is that venison? You're the best." He moved to kiss her, but Celine turned her face away. Marcus frowned. "What's wrong? Are you having an affair with Isabella?" The words came out flat, emotionless. She had no energy left for tears. Marcus's face went carefully blank. "Who told you that?" Not a denial, a question about her source. that told her everything she needed to know. "So it's true," Celine whispered, standing up from the table. "How long?" "Celine, you don't understand the situation." "How long, Marcus?" He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. For a moment he looked almost regretful. "Almost. Since the beginning. Even before we mated. Isabella and I have been together for 3 years. The pain was physical, a knife twisting in her chest. "Then why did you mate with me?" "Because you're an Omega," Marcus said simply, as if it explained everything. "The pack needed to see me as compassionate, as someone who would care for the weakest members. Choosing you as my mate made me look good. Made me look like I wasn't just ambitious, that I had a heart. It was political." Celine gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. "You used me." "We used each other," Marcus corrected. "You got protection, a place in the pack, security. Don't act like you didn't benefit from this arrangement." "Arrangement? We're mates, Marcus. You took vows." "Vows that can be broken," Marcus said coldly. The man she thought she knew was gone, replaced by a stranger with ice in his eyes. "And they will be. Tomorrow night, actually. At the Alpha's feast." "What are you talking about?" Marcus smiled, and it was a cruel expression. "You'll see. I suggest you enjoy your last night in this cottage, Celine. After tomorrow, you won't have a place here anymore." He walked out, leaving her standing in the ruins of her perfect life, betrayed by her own mate. The Alpha's Feast was a monthly tradition in the Crimson Moon Pack, a gathering where the entire pack came together to celebrate their bonds and strength. Celine had attended dozens of them over the past year, always sitting beside Marcus at the Beta's table, always feeling like she didn't quite belong but grateful to be included. Tonight, as she walked into the great hall, every instinct screamed at her to run. But she held her head high. If Marcus was going to reject her publicly, she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her cower. The hall was decorated with autumn leaves and burning torches. The smell of roasted meat and mead filled the air. Pack members laughed and talked, their voices echoing off the high wooden ceiling. Celine found her usual seat at the Beta's table, but Marcus wasn't there yet. Alpha Donovan sat at the head table with his wife and daughter. Isabella was beautiful in a way Celine could never be. Tall, strong, with the confidence of someone who had never questioned her place in the world. Her blonde hair cascaded down her back, and she wore a dress that probably cost more than Celine's entire cottage. When Isabella's eyes met Celine's across the room, she smiled. It was a predator's smile. Lydia appeared at Celine's elbow. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed. "I told you to leave." "I'm not running," Celine said quietly. "Whatever happens, I'll face it." The feast began with Alpha Donovan's traditional blessing. Food was served, mead flowed freely, and the pack celebrated another successful month. Celine barely touched her food, her stomach twisted in knots. She kept watching the head table, watching Isabella and her father exchange meaningful glances. Then Marcus arrived. He wasn't alone. He walked in with Isabella at his side, their hands clasped together openly. The hall slowly fell silent as pack members noticed. This was unprecedented. Mates didn't appear publicly with other partners. It was a direct insult to the mate bond. Marcus led Isabella to the head table, seating her with honor. Then he turned to face the assembled pack, his voice carrying clearly through the sudden quiet. "Alpha Donovan, honored pack members, I stand before you tonight to make a grave accusation." Celine's blood ran cold. "My mate Celine has betrayed our pack. She has conspired with rogues and hunters to poison our Alpha." The hall erupted in shocked gasps and angry growls. Celine shot to her feet. "That's a lie. I would never." "Search her cottage," Marcus commanded, his voice full of righteous anger. "You'll find the evidence. Bottles of poison, correspondence with our enemies, payment in silver coins. She has been plotting against us for months." "No!" Celine cried out, her voice breaking. "This is insane. Marcus, why are you doing this?" Alpha Donovan rose from his seat, his face thunderous. He was a large man, powerful even in his older years, and his authority was absolute. "Bring me this evidence." 2 warriors left immediately. They returned within minutes, impossibly fast, which meant the evidence had been planted recently, probably that very evening. They carried a wooden box, which they opened before the Alpha. Inside were bottles of clear liquid, letters sealed with wax, and a pouch of silver coins. Celine stared in horror. "I've never seen those things before in my life. This is a setup." "The letters are in your handwriting," Marcus said coldly. "Confessing your crimes. Planning the Alpha's death. You wanted to throw the pack into chaos so your rogue allies could attack." "My handwriting?" Celine's mind raced. She remembered all the little notes she used to write for Marcus, love letters and reminders. He had kept them. He had used them to forge evidence against her. Alpha Donovan's face was stone. "Celine, Omega of the Crimson Moon Pack, you stand accused of treason. How do you plead?" "Innocent," Celine screamed. "This is all lies. Marcus is the traitor, not me. He and Isabella planned this together." But no one was listening. The pack was already turning against her, their faces twisted with anger and betrayal. To them, she was just an Omega, weak and easily corrupted. Of course she would be the traitor. It made perfect sense in their minds. "I have one more piece of evidence," Isabella spoke up, her voice sweet as poison. She held up a vial. "This was found in the kitchens where Celine works. It's the same poison that was put in my father's wine tonight. If I hadn't caught the smell and warned him, he would be dead." The Alpha's face went purple with rage. "You tried to murder me?" "No." Celine was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Please, you have to believe me. I'm being framed. I, Marcus Thorne, Beta of the Crimson Moon Pack, hereby reject you, Celine, as my mate. May the Moon Goddess sever our bond." Marcus's voice rang out clear and final. The pain was instantaneous and excruciating. The thin thread of their mate bond, already weak, snapped completely. It felt like being torn in half, like every bone in her body breaking at once. Celine collapsed to her knees, screaming in agony. Cast out into the wilderness. The rejection pain subsided slowly, leaving Celine trembling and weak on the floor of the great hall. Around her, the pack watched with cold eyes. No one helped her. No one defended her. Even Lydia stood frozen, too afraid to speak up against the Beta and the Alpha's daughter. Alpha Donovan's voice boomed through the hall. "Celine, you are hereby banished from the Crimson Moon Pack. You are stripped of your rank, your protections, and your home. You will be escorted to our borders and released into the wilderness. If you are ever seen on our territory again, you will be killed on sight." Does anyone speak in her defense? Silence. Crushing, absolute silence. Celine looked around at the faces she had known for a year, the wolves she had cared for, healed, and helped. Not one of them met her eyes. She was an Omega. She was nothing. She was disposable. "Please," she whispered, looking up at Marcus one last time. "Please tell them the truth." Marcus looked down at her with empty eyes. "I am telling the truth. You betrayed us all." He turned to Isabella and took her hand. "Alpha Donovan, I formally request permission to court your daughter. With my mate bond severed, I am free to seek a true partner." "Permission granted," the Alpha said with a pleased nod. "Isabella deserves a strong mate, not a weak traitor." They were already moving on, already forgetting her. She had been nothing but an obstacle to remove, and now she was removed. 2 warriors grabbed Celine roughly by the arms and dragged her from the hall. She didn't fight. What was the point? She was an Omega. She had no strength, no power, no voice. They hauled her through the pack lands she had called home, past her cottage, her former cottage, and toward the dark forest that marked the border. It was raining, a cold autumn rain that soaked through her dress within minutes. The warriors dragged her to the edge of the territory and threw her forward. She landed hard in the mud, her hands scraping against rocks. "Run, Omega," one of the warriors said with disgust. "Run before we change our minds and kill you now." They shifted into their wolf forms and howled, a sound that echoed through the forest. It was a warning to all rogues and predators. Prey was coming. Weak prey. Easy prey. Celine scrambled to her feet and ran. The stranger in the shadows. She ran blindly through the forest, branches tearing at her clothes and face, rain blurring her vision. Behind her, she could hear howls, not from the pack warriors, but from rogues who had heard the signal. They were hunting her. A lone Omega with no pack, no protection, was easy prey. Her lungs burned. Her weak body wasn't built for this kind of exertion. She had never been a strong shifter, had never developed the stamina that warriors had. Within minutes, she was exhausted, but terror kept her moving. A root caught her foot, and she went down hard, tumbling down a steep embankment. She landed at the bottom in a stream, the icy water shocking her system. For a moment, she just lay there, too tired and broken to move. Maybe this was for the best. Maybe she should just let the cold take her, let the rogues find her. What did she have to live for? The sound of snarling brought her back to reality. 3 rogue wolves emerged from the trees, their eyes glowing in the darkness. They were thin and mangy, clearly desperate for an easy meal. The largest one, a scarred gray wolf, moved toward her slowly, savoring the hunt. Celine tried to shift into her wolf form to defend herself, but nothing happened. The trauma of the rejection had left her too weak. Her wolf was silent, unreachable. She was completely human, completely vulnerable. "Please," she whispered, knowing it was useless. Rogues didn't speak, didn't negotiate. They were feral, driven only by hunger and violence. The gray wolf lunged, and was thrown backward by a massive black shape that seemed to materialize from the shadows. The new wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of the largest rogue. His fur was pure black, his eyes a startling amber color that seemed to glow with intelligence and fury. He stood over Celine protectively, his growl so deep it vibrated through the ground. The 3 rogues hesitated, recognizing a predator far more dangerous than they were. The black wolf snapped his jaws, and the sound was like thunder. The rogues ran. Celine stared up at her savior, too shocked to be afraid. The black wolf turned to look at her, and their eyes met. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, something she couldn't name. Then the wolf shifted. The transformation was seamless, powerful. A man stood before her, and he was breathtaking. Tall and muscular, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and the same amber eyes. His face was harsh, marked with scars that spoke of countless battles. But there was an elegance to his features, a regal bearing that reminded her of Alpha Donovan but more, stronger, ancient. He wore simple dark clothes that had somehow appeared with his shift, a sign of a powerful shifter who could control his transformation completely. He crouched down beside her, studying her with those intense eyes. "You're dying," he said simply. His voice was deep, rough from disuse. Celine realized he was right. She was shaking violently, hypothermia setting in from the cold rain and the icy stream. The rejection pain was still pulsing through her body, weakening her further. She probably had minutes, not hours. "Good," she whispered. "Let me die." The man's eyes narrowed. "Why would a wolf want to die?" "Because I have nothing left," Celine said, tears mixing with the rain on her face.
No pack, no mate, no oma.
"I'm an Omega."
I'm worthless.
Something flickered in the man's amber eyes. Recognition, sympathy, anger. He made a decision. Without asking permission, he scooped her up into his arms as easily as if she weighed nothing. His body heat was incredible, pushing back the cold. "You're not worthless," he said, carrying her into the forest. "You're just broken. I know something about being broken." "Who are you?" Celine asked, her consciousness fading. The man looked down at her, and for the first time he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was a smile full of pain and dark promise. "My name is Kale," he said, "and I'm going to teach you something important, little Omega. The broken pieces can be reforged into the sharpest weapons. A deal with darkness. Celine woke in a cave. Not a rough, primitive cave, but one that had clearly been transformed into a living space. There was a fire burning in a carefully constructed hearth, furs and blankets spread on the ground for bedding, shelves carved into the stone walls holding supplies and books. Dried herbs hung from the ceiling, filling the air with a pleasant, earthy scent. She was warm. Someone had changed her out of her wet clothes and into a soft shirt that was far too large for her. She was wrapped in furs, and the fire crackled nearby. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was or how she got there. Then it all came rushing back. Marcus, the betrayal, the exile, the rogues, and the mysterious black wolf who had saved her. "You're awake." The voice came from the corner of the cave. Kale sat on a stone bench, sharpening a long knife with methodical strokes. In the firelight, he looked even more dangerous than he had in the forest. "How do you feel?" "Like I want to die," Celine answered honestly. "That's the rejection sickness," Kale said, not looking up from his knife. "It'll pass. Takes about 3 days for the worst of it to fade. By the end of the week, you'll be functional again. Physically, anyway. Emotionally," he shrugged. "That takes longer." Celine sat up slowly, wincing at the ache in her body. "Why did you save me?" "Because I hate seeing waste," Kale said simply. He finally looked up, his amber eyes meeting hers. "You were thrown away like trash. I know what that's like. I thought you might be worth saving." "I'm just an Omega," Celine said bitterly. "Weak. Useless. Worthless. Is that what they told you?" Kale set down his knife and stood, moving closer to the fire. In the flickering light, she could see the scars that covered his arms, his neck, disappearing under his shirt. This was a man who had survived terrible things. "Let me tell you something about Omegas. You've been lied to your entire life." "What do you mean?" Kale crouched down beside her, his intense gaze holding hers. "Omegas aren't weak. You're suppressed. Your power is locked away because the packs fear what you could become." "Do you know what Omega really means?" Celine shook her head. "It means end. Omega is the last letter, the final word, the conclusion. In ancient times, Omegas weren't the weakest, they were the most powerful. They were the judges, the executioners, the ones who ended conflicts and brought balance. But the Alphas feared that power, so they created a system to suppress it. They bred weakness into Omega bloodlines, taught you that you were nothing, kept you small and scared." Celine stared at him, her mind reeling. "That's not possible. I can barely shift. I have no strength." "Because you've been poisoned," Kale said bluntly. "Not literally. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Your pack has been feeding you lies since the day you were born, and your body believed those lies. But the power is still there, buried deep. I can feel it in you." "Who are you?" Celine asked again. "You're not just a rogue. You're something else." Kale was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. "I was an alpha once. The alpha of the Shadow Peak Pack, one of the strongest packs in the Northern Territories. I had everything: power, respect, a pack that would die for me. And then I was betrayed by someone I trusted, framed for crimes I didn't commit, and cast out." "Sound familiar?" Celine's eyes widened. "You were exiled too." 5 years ago, Kale confirmed. "My beta wanted my position. He wanted my mate. So he manufactured evidence that I had been working with rogues, that I had killed pack members. The council believed him. My own pack believed him. My mate rejected me publicly and took him as her new alpha." "I'm so sorry," Celine whispered. "Don't be sorry," Kale said, his voice hardening. "Be angry. That's what kept me alive these past 5 years. Anger. The burning need for revenge. I've spent every day since then getting stronger, gathering information, preparing for the day when I return to Shadow Peak and take back what's mine." "You're going back?" Celine asked. "To face them." "Eventually," Kale said. "When I'm ready. When I'm strong enough that no one can deny me what I'm owed." He leaned forward, his amber eyes intense. "And that's what I'm offering you, Celine. A chance to get stronger. A chance to go back. A chance to make them all pay for what they did to you. Celine's heart began to beat faster. I don't understand. How? I can train you, Kale said. I can unlock the power that's been suppressed in you. I can teach you to fight, to be strong, to be the wolf you were always meant to be. It won't be easy. It will be the hardest thing you've ever done. You'll want to quit 1,000 times. But if you survive, if you push through, you'll become something they never expected. Something they'll fear. Why would you do this for me? Celine asked suspiciously. What do you get out of it? Kale smiled that dark smile again. Because I can't take down my enemies alone. I need allies. I need wolves who have been wronged, who have reason to fight, who have nothing left to lose. You're perfect. And because, he paused, studying her face, because I see myself in you, the broken, discarded version of myself from 5 years ago. I want to see what you become. Celine looked at this dangerous, scarred stranger who was offering her something she never thought she'd have again. Purpose. Hope. The chance to be more than an omega, more than trash thrown away. If I do this, she said slowly, I want revenge. I want Marcus to suffer. I want Isabella to lose everything. I want them to feel what they made me feel. Good, Kale said with satisfaction. Hold on to that anger. Feed it. Let it make you strong. Revenge is an excellent motivator. He stood and offered her his hand. So what do you say, Celine? Do you want to stay a victim? Or do you want to become a predator? Celine looked at his offered hand. This was a deal with darkness, she knew that. Kale was dangerous, possibly more dangerous than anyone she'd ever met. This path would change her, twist her, turn her into something she'd never imagined being. But what did she have to lose? She was already dead in the eyes of her old pack. She had already lost everything. She reached out and took his hand. His grip was strong, warm, solid. Teach me, she said, her voice steady for the first time since the rejection. Teach me how to make them pay. Kale's smile widened, showing teeth. Welcome to your new life, Celine. Tomorrow we begin. And I promise you this, when we're done, when you walk back into that pack, they won't recognize you. They threw away an omega. But what returns will be something far more dangerous. As Celine lay back down on the furs, her body still aching but her mind finally clear, she made herself a promise. Marcus had used her, betrayed her, thrown her away. Isabella had schemed to destroy her. The pack had turned their backs on her. They had made a mistake. Terrible mistake. Because the broken omega they'd exiled was going to return. And she was going to burn their perfect lives to the ground. The rejection had nearly killed her. But what survived was going to be their worst nightmare. Dawn broke over the forest with pale golden light filtering through the cave entrance. Celine woke to the sound of wood crackling in the fire and the smell of cooking meat. Her body still ached from the rejection trauma, a deep soreness that seemed to penetrate to her bones. But something felt different. There was a small spark of energy inside her that hadn't been there before. Hope, maybe, or anger, possibly both. Kale was sitting by the fire, turning a spit with several rabbits roasting over the flames. He looked up when she stirred, his amber eyes sharp and assessing. Eat, he commanded, pulling one of the rabbits off and handing it to her on a flat piece of bark that served as a plate. You need protein. Your body is trying to heal from the rejection, and you're malnourished on top of it. Celine took the food gratefully. She hadn't eaten since before the feast, before her world had shattered. The meat was perfectly cooked, seasoned with herbs she recognized from the bundles hanging in the cave. As she ate, Kale watched her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. This cave, Celine said between bites, looking around at the surprisingly comfortable space. How long have you lived here? 3 years, Kale replied. After I was exiled. I wandered for 2 years, living rough, barely surviving. Then I found this place. It's on neutral territory, far enough from any pack lands that I'm not trespassing, but close enough to several packs that I can watch, listen, and learn. There's a whole network of caves in this mountain. Some are natural, some were carved out by wolves a long time ago. This is just the entrance. The Real Haven is deeper inside. A network. Celine's curiosity was piqued despite her emotional exhaustion. Kale stood and gestured for her to follow.
Come.
If you're going to stay here and train, you should see what you're getting into. Still wrapped in one of the furs, Celine followed him deeper into the cave. The passage narrowed, and for a moment, she felt a flutter of claustrophobia. Then it opened into a massive cavern that took her breath away. The cavern was enormous, easily the size of the Crimson Moon Pack's Great Hall. Natural skylights in the rock ceiling let in shafts of morning light, illuminating a space that had been transformed into something remarkable. There was a training area with weapons hung on the walls, swords, staffs, knives, and things Celine didn't recognize. There was a library section with books carefully protected in waterproof containers. There were sleeping areas, storage areas, and even a natural spring that bubbled up from the ground, creating a small pool of crystal-clear water. But what shocked Celine most were the other wolves. 4 of them, to be exact, sitting around a morning fire in the center of the cavern. They all looked up when Kale and Celine entered, their expressions ranging from curious to suspicious. "Everyone," Kale announced, his voice carrying authority that made Celine's wolf, silent for so long, stir with recognition. This was an alpha's voice, even in exile. "This is Celine. She'll be training with us. Celine, meet my pack." Or what passes for a pack these days. A young man with red hair and green eyes stood first. He was lean and tall, with the look of a runner. "I'm Finn," he said with a friendly smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Former warrior of the Riverside Pack. I was exiled for refusing to attack a neighboring pack's pups during a raid. Apparently, having a conscience is a crime." A woman with dark skin and powerful shoulders spoke next. "Nara. I was the head warrior of the Mountain Stone Pack until the new Alpha decided women couldn't hold leadership positions. When I challenged him, he framed me for theft and had me expelled." Her eyes were hard, bitter. "I've been here for 8 months. The third person was younger, maybe 19 or 20, with blonde hair and nervous energy. "I'm Tessa," she said softly. "I'm an Omega 2, from the Golden Veil Pack. My alpha son wanted me as his mate, but when I refused him, when I told him I didn't feel the mate bond, he accused me of being defective. They were going to kill me to preserve the bloodline's purity. Kale saved me. The last wolf was an older man, probably in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and the bearing of someone who had once commanded respect. "Roland," he said simply, "former beta of the Northern Ridge Pack. I discovered my alpha was embezzling pack funds and selling information to hunters. When I tried to expose him, he had me declared a traitor. My mate was killed in the process." His voice was flat, emotionless, but Celine could see the pain buried deep in his eyes. For wolves, for exiles, all betrayed, all cast out, all carrying wounds that went deeper than flesh. "We're the forgotten ones," Kale said, moving to stand at the center of the group. "The wolves that the packs threw away because we were inconvenient, because we threatened their power, or simply because we were weak. But we're not weak anymore. We've spent our time here training, learning, becoming stronger than we ever were in our old packs. And soon, very soon, we're going to make them remember us." "Revenge," Nara said with satisfaction. "That's what keeps me going. Every day I train, I imagine the look on my former alpha's face when I challenge him and win. For me, it's justice," Finn added. "I want the packs to see that what they did was wrong. I want to expose their corruption. I just want to live without fear," Tessa said quietly. "I want to be strong enough that no one can ever threaten me again." Roland said nothing, but his hands clenched into fists. Kale looked at Celine. "What about you? What do you want?" Celine thought about Marcus's cold eyes as he rejected her, about Isabella's triumphant smile, about the pack that had watched her be destroyed and done nothing. "I want them to suffer," she said, her voice low and fierce. "I want to take everything from them the way they took everything from me. I want them to feel powerless and afraid. I want revenge." Kale nodded with approval. "Good. Honest. That's what I need. Revenge is a powerful motivator. But it's not enough on its own. To survive what's coming, you need more. You need to discover who you really are beneath all the lies you've been told. That's what we do here. We break down the false identities the packs forced on us, and we rebuild ourselves into something stronger. He gestured to the training area. We start today.
No reste, no mercy, no excuses.
If you want revenge, you have to earn it. Are you ready? Celine looked at the training weapons, at the 4 exiled wolves who had somehow found purpose in their pain, at Kale with his scarred face and iron will. She thought about the old Celine, meek, obedient, always trying to please everyone, always accepting that she was lesser.